performed on people suspected of having hyperglycemia, which is a high blood sugar level. We do a standard GTT, which is a 2-hour format. We also do a modified GTT, and we can also perform a glucose challenge, which is performed on pregnant women. Patient preparation for a standard 2-hour glucose tolerance is they must fast for 10 to 16 hours and no greater than 16 hours. They can have had water, black tea or coffee with no milk and sugar. They also need to present in a well state. If they've had the flu or vomiting and diarrhoea in the last week, it's best to advise them to come back at a later date. Patient preparation for a glucose challenge test is there's no need to fast for the patient. Basically, they come into the centre, we record the last 8 time, we give them the 50 grams of glucose, wait 1 hour and then perform a blood test. Once you have identified your patient, you then need to establish a last 8 time. What time did you last eat or drink?
9 o'clock last night.
Excellent. You fill out another form which is associated with the glucose tolerance. It's for pregnant or non-pregnant patients. You just need to fill out the correct box. So for this particular test, we're doing the standard 2-hour. So I usually cross out all the others. And we write the time that we're collecting the fasting sample, which will be 9 AM, and our collector's initials. The instructions for the actual glucose tolerance are written in the box. It'll tell you how much glucose to give the patient and when to collect the samples. So for the standard 2-hour test, collect one at a fasting time, which is 9 AM, and then collect one 2 hours later. So the time difference should be roughly 2 hours. Once you've correctly identified your patient, you then need to make sure you get a BMI. It is essential when you perform a glucose tolerance test. Centre box, you need to clearly indicate a last 8 time. This is very important for the laboratory. The essential information in your centre box is centre stamp, a billing code, the time and date of collection, also the collector's code or initials. You definitely need a last 8 time and how many hours that is, PP. Once we've completed all the paperwork, we then need to collect a fasting sample from the patient. This is collected in an SST and it needs to be clearly marked with a fasting sticker on the top, so the lab knows which is the fasting sample. Just press there for me. Invert your tube 8 to 10 times and then label it with all the correct information. So the patient's surname, first name, date of birth, time of collection and date. And with the glucose tolerance, we need 0-hour GTT and our collector's initials. We must write 0-hour GTT on the fasting tube and then 2-hour GTT on the second tube, so the lab can identify which one was the fasting and which one was the 2-hour glucose tolerance. In the lab, they received 2 samples with the same patient and the same test, so they need to be able to clearly define which one was the 0-hour and which one was the 2-hour. Put the lab number on. Please check your details on the tube. Just spell it back to me so I can understand that it's all correct.
SMITH, Leslie LESLIE, 161047.
Is that all correct?
It is, yes.
Now that we've collected our blood, what we need to do is instruct the patient to have the drink. You drink this within 5 minutes. Once you've completed the whole bottle, you then need to press the start button, and that will start the 2 hours. If the patient vomits within the first hour of the test, we have to discontinue. If it is after the hour, we need to ring the laboratory for guidance on what to do. Once the 2 hours is up, we then need to take the patient back into your room and collect another blood sample into an SST. Be patient not to turn the alarm off once it's sounded, and as collectors we need to make sure that we get the patient into the room as quickly as we can because it is a timed test. If there is a time delay for whatever reason, we need to make sure we note that on the forms. Once we've collected our fasting and 2-hour blood samples, band them together and export them to the lab like this. A patient or refreshment, they're going to have a substantial drop in their sugar levels and we need to make sure they get home safely.